Hi guys, this is Tyler from ORATS, and today I'm going to show you everything you need to know about volatility in the Trade Builder. The Trade Builder offers three ways to look at volatility. The first is an overlay of the 68% and 95% IV range, and it is often used to show the expected price movement of the underlying within one or two standard deviations. The second is a shaded overview on the graph of future strikes and expirations that we call value vol. Lastly, we have the graph below the prices where you can see implied versus historical volatility. Let's start with IV ranges. By clicking the overlay buttons, you can change which IV range is shown. The 68% range shows how much the stock price is expected to move within that time frame, 68% of the time, calculated using the at-the-money implied volatility value for future expirations. This is equivalent to a one standard deviation move in the stock price. The 95% IV range is wider and covers two standard deviations of expected movement in the stock price. Next is the value vol shading, which is an innovative technique developed by ORATS to show where the future volatility is undervalued or overvalued. In green areas, the forecast of volatility is greater than the implied, while red areas show where forecasts are below the implied. Being able to view this at a high level across the entire options chain empowers you to make smarter choices when it comes to trading. To analyze a potential trade, we can go to the option scanner and click the analysis icon. This will overlay the legs of that trade onto the Trade Builder graph. For volatility valuation, the legs can be assessed against the colored backdrop. Green circles that represent long legs are ideally in line with the green shading, while red circles that represent short legs go with the red shading. You can toggle the IV range buttons to see if your trade is within one or two standard deviations of movement. Now, let's dive into the methods that ORATS uses to shade the graph. We start with four categories of data: short-term implied volatility, long-term implied volatility, short-term slope, and long-term slope. We calculate these using a combination of our most powerful volatility indicators, shown here. We measure these indicators across both the underlying symbol and the underlying symbol's best ETF, which is the closest SPDR sector ETF in terms of the company's sector and industry. By comparing the calculations between the symbol and its best ETF, we come up with a more accurate estimation of the true value of volatility. Now, it would take too much time to dive into each of these indicators separately, but to give you an idea of how sophisticated and useful these indicators are, let's dive into the calculation of this indicator. Let's hop over to the Indicators tab, which gives us a detailed overview of the description of the indicator, contributing factors, graphs, and related indicators. The ORATS forecast of implied volatility takes into account X earnings historical and implied volatility, compares them to each other, and then also considers the relationship to the best ETF. Jumping back to the Trade Builder, we can actually add this indicator to our graph. For a deeper dive into some of our most popular indicators, check out our other videos. Let's look at the last way to analyze volatility in the Trade Builder, the IV versus HV graph. This graph, located underneath the price graph, shows the IV 30-day indicator against the HV 30-day indicator, with the at-the-money implied volatility plotted on the expiration dates in the future. This is a quick way to see how volatility is expected to change, especially around earnings. You can see on the graph how the volatility increases up to the next earnings date, at which point it begins to decrease. And that covers all three ways to analyze volatility in the Trade Builder: IV range, value vol, and the IV versus HV graph. With these tools, you can uncover meaningful volatility insights from across the options chain that will help you make smarter trading decisions. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, please email support@orats.com or drop a comment below.